I held the paper in my hand. "Doctor, is this true?" I asked. He said, "I am sorry. You cannot carry children." I said, "Maybe the test was wrong." He said, we checked twice. "I told your parents." I felt heat rise in my face and ears. "I need time," I said very softly. He said, "Take care. You still have life." I walked home with slow feet and fear. Mother waited at the door and looked away. I said, "Did you know before me?" She said, "The doctor called." "Sit and breathe." Father sat quiet near the window with tea. I said, "Say something. Please say anything." He said, "We have debt. We need money." Mother said, "A man came with an offer." I said, "An offer for what, Mother?" She said, "For help, for work." "For your future." I said, "You mean for my womb and shame." Father said, "Do not use that word here." I said, "You sold me like a goat." Mother said, "Watch your mouth. This is help." I said, "Help that needs cash and silence." She said, "People talk." "We must protect our name." I said, "You mean your pride and money?" Father said, "Enough. Pack a small bag tonight." I said, "Where do I go?" "With who?" Mother said, "The man will come in the morning." I said, "Does he know I cannot bear children?" She said, "He knows. He needs hands, not babies." I said, "He buys a body then returns me." Father said, "Stop. You will be safe with him." I said, "What is his name?" Mother said, "Elias Ward, a lumberjack outside town." I tasted iron and old tears in my mouth. Mother said, "Take the shawl." Nights feel cold. I folded the shawl and packed my dress. I added a ribbon, a comb, and a note. The note said, "I was a daughter once." I hid it deep under 2 thin shirts. At dinner, no one spoke. We ate in silence. I said, "Do you remember my first dance?" Mother said, "Do not start old stories now." Father said, "Eat. Your road will be long." I said, "Say you love me at least." Mother said, "Love needs food." "We have none." Father said, "I love you." "I am weak." I stared at him. He looked at the floor. I washed the plates and cleaned the table. Mother said, "Sleep. Morning will come fast." I lay on my mat and watched the ceiling. Wind tapped the window like small hands. I said, "Home, do you still want me?" Silence answered. My heart beat heavy and slow. I remembered the doctor's room and smell. He said, "Infertility is not a curse." I said, "But people will say it is." He said, "Their words are small and mean." I said, "Their words still cut like a knife." He said, "Your life is more than this." Midnight rain came hard and washed the street. I thought of money, shame, secret, and fear. I held a promise in my chest like fire. I said, "I will live. I will move on." Sunrise came pale and cold like old bread. Mother woke me and touched my hair once. She said, "It looked decent. He will pay well." I said, "I am not for sale." She said, "You are my child." "Do not fight me." I said, "I am your debt in silence." She said nothing. She fixed her shawl tight. A cart stopped outside with creaking wheels. I stood, breathed, and held my small bag. A tall man waited with wet boots and eyes. He said, "Are you Ilara?" I said, "Yes, I am the one." He said, "I am Elias Ward. I need help." I said, "What kind of help, sir?" He said, "Home help, cooking, care for children." I said, "How many children do you have?" He said, 4. They need hands and patience. I said, "Do you know my problem?" He said, "I know enough. I do not judge." Mother said, "She works hard and keeps quiet." Father said, "Payment first." We agreed on a sum. Elias said, "You will have my word and coin." I watched him count the money into Father's hand. I said, "Am I worth that number now?" Father flinched. He said, "Do not shame us." Elias said, "You are not a number to me." I said, "Then why do I stand like this?" Elias said, "Because the world is not kind." I said, "I can leave if I choose?" Elias said, "You can leave. I will not stop you." Mother said, "Do not act proud. Go with him." I said, "Say goodbye then." "Say I matter." She said, "Goodbye. Make us proud by working." I said, "I will make myself proud instead." Father said, "Travel safe. Write if you need." I said, "I needed you yesterday, Father." He closed his eyes and said nothing more. Elias lifted my bag into the cart. He said, "Sit. The road is rough today." I climbed in and wrapped the shawl tight. Rain fell light and made the world gray. Mother stood in the doorway like a statue. Father turned away and counted the money again. I said, Do you feel sorry for me? Elias said, I feel angry at the world. I said, I felt small, like smoke in wind. He said, You are not smoke. You are strong. I said, You do not know me yet. He said, I know pain when I see it. I said, What do you gain from me? He said, Peace at home, help for the kids. I said, And what do I gain? He said, A safe bed, food, some freedom. I said, Freedom that still wears a chain. He said, We all wear chains, some softer. I looked back at the house and whispered, I was a daughter here, I said. The cart rolled past the gate and old tree. I said, I will never cry for them again. Elias kept the reins steady and quiet. He said, Do you want to talk more? I said, Not now. My voice felt tired. He said, Rest, the forest waits ahead. I said, Does the forest keep secrets? He said, Many, but it also keeps peace. I said, I want peace more than food. He said, You will eat and find quiet. I held my bag and the small hidden note. I felt the ribbon scratch my fingers gently. I said, My name is Alara, not Det. Elias said, Alara, welcome to a new road. I nodded and let the rain cool my face. I whispered, Heart, be brave, choose freedom. The cart moved on and the town grew small. I breathed out fear and breathed in hope. I said, I can heal. I can forgive later. The wheels clicked like a clock under us. I watched fields, roofs, and the river slide by. I counted breaths until my hands grew warm. I said, I am not a burden anymore. The road was long and full of mud. The cart shook under me as we moved through the woods. I kept my eyes low. I didn't speak. I didn't ask where we were going. Are you cold? The man asked. His voice was deep, quiet. I'm fine, I said. My hands were shaking, but I didn't want him to see. He looked at me for a moment, then said, Name's Elias Ward. I nodded. Alara. He didn't smile, but he didn't look cruel either. The smell of pine filled the air, sharp and clean. The trees grew thicker until I couldn't see the sky. After some time, he said, You'll help with the house. And the children. Children? I asked. 4 of them, he said. They lost their mother last year. My stomach turned. And me? Why did you? He cut in softly. You needed a home. I needed help. That's all. I stared at my hands. They were dry, rough, small. I whispered, I didn't have a choice. Elias didn't answer. The cart kept rolling through the mud. When we reached his land, I saw a small cabin between tall trees. Smoke rose from the chimney. It looked lonely, but safe. A little boy ran out, his hair wild. Pa! He shouted. 3 more followed, 2 girls and a smaller one crying in her arms. Elias climbed down and said, Children, this is Alara. She'll be staying with us. The older girl, maybe 8, looked at me and frowned. The younger ones hid behind her. Only the boy came closer, curious. Are you our new mama? He asked. I froze. No, I said quickly. Just here to help. Elias's face tightened. Inside, all of you, they ran in. The door closed behind them. The sound of the forest returned. Wind, birds, and silence. Elias took a breath. They'll need time, he said. So will I whispered. He nodded. You'll have your own room. It's small but warm. Inside, the cabin smelled of wood and smoke. The walls were lined with tools and shelves. A table stood near the fire, 4 chairs around it. A 5th one was empty, dust on the seat. He pointed to a small door in the back. That's yours, I stepped in. A straw bed, 1 window, 1 blanket. Still more than I had before. You can rest, he said. Supper at dusk. I sat on the bed and looked at the wooden beams above me. My chest felt tight. I had escaped one home that hated me, only to end up in another man's house in the middle of nowhere. When I closed my eyes, I heard my mother's voice again. No man will want a barren woman. I bit my lip and pushed the thought away. Later, I went to the main room. Elias was cutting bread. The children sat quietly watching me. I tried to smile. What's your name? I asked the eldest. Anna, she said. Her voice was flat. The middle girl whispered, June. The little one hid behind them. Elias said, That's Rose. She doesn't talk much. And you? I asked the boy. Caleb, he said proudly. I'm 5. He pushed a small wooden toy toward me. Mama made this, he said. I took it carefully. It's beautiful, he smiled. Anna looked away. We ate in silence. The fire cracked between us. I chewed slowly, not sure if I was hungry or just trying to fill the space. After supper, Elias said, I'll show you the barn tomorrow. We cut wood early. All right, I said. He glanced at me once more. You don't have to be afraid. I'm not, I lied. He didn't call me out. He just said, good night, and went outside. The children followed him with their eyes, then slipped into their rooms. I stayed by the fire for a while. My hands were still shaking. I held them close to the flame until they stopped. When the house went quiet, I returned to my room. I lay on the straw bed, listening to the wind against the cabin walls. It felt strange, safe and unsafe at the same time. I stared up at the ceiling. The shadows moved like ghosts. I thought of my parents counting coins while I was being taken away. I thought of Elias's tired eyes. Maybe he wasn't cruel, but kindness scared me more than anger. I didn't know what to believe anymore. The forest outside groaned with night sounds. I whispered into the dark. I will survive this too. My voice sounded small, but it was real. For the first time in days, I didn't cry. When I woke up, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked into the kitchen. 4 small bowls sat on the table. Someone had already poured milk. The smell of wood smoke filled the air. I said softly, "Good morning." No one answered. Anna, the oldest, stood by the window. She didn't blink. Her dark hair hid half her face. June peeked out from behind the doorframe, eyes wide and scared. Rose sat on the floor, holding a doll with no arm. Caleb, the youngest, watched me from under the table. I smiled and said, "I can make breakfast." Still silence. Only the fire cracked. Elias stepped in, carrying logs. "They'll warm up," he said. I nodded. "I'll try." He left again for the forest. I turned to the children. "Do you like eggs?" Anna shrugged. June ran away. Rose started crying, small, soft sobs. Caleb climbed out from under the table and touched my skirt. He held up a wooden toy horse with one leg missing. "Mama made this," he whispered. The word mama hit me like a stone. I knelt down. "She must have been kind," I said. He nodded, eyes big. "She sang at night." I smiled, though my throat burned. "Do you want me to fix it?" He thought for a moment, then handed me the toy. Okay, that was all. One word, one gift. But it felt like a bridge across a wide, empty river. By noon, I tried to cook stew. I didn't know much about fire stoves. The flames jumped too high. I moved the pot and burned my hand. "Ah," I cried. The door opened fast. Elias walked in, axe still in his hand. "What happened?" "I touched the pot," I said, hiding my hand. He frowned and came closer. "Let me see." "It's fine. Let me see," he said again, firm but calm. I showed him my red skin. He poured cool water from a jug, then wrapped my hand with a piece of cloth torn from his shirt. His hands were rough, but gentle. "You should be careful," he said. "I will," I whispered. He looked at me for a moment. "They'll talk to you soon," he said quietly. "They just need time," I wanted to ask. "And you? Do you need time too?" But I said nothing. That night I sat by the fire. The children slept in the loft above. I listened to the wind and thought about home, the place that never felt like one. I wondered if my parents ever thought of me. Probably not. Elias came in late, smelling of pine and rain. He placed a small box on the table. "I fixed the horse," he said. "You didn't have to." He shrugged. "Caleb asked me." I smiled. "He trusts you." Elias looked at the fire. "He will trust you too." The silence between us was heavy but not cold. I wanted to thank him, to say something real. Instead, I only said, "Good night." He nodded. "Good night." When I lay in bed, I stared at the wooden ceiling. The toy horse sat near the window, whole again. Caleb would smile in the morning. Maybe Anna would speak. Maybe June would stop hiding. Maybe Rose would laugh again. Maybe I would too. But not yet. For now, silence was safer. The village market was full that morning. People sold apples, milk, and bread. I walked past slowly, carrying a small basket. A woman whispered, "That's her." Another said, "The infertile bride." My hands shook. I kept walking. The ground felt heavy under my feet. When I reached the gate, Clara waved from her porch. "Come sit, Alara," she said. "You look pale." I sat on the old chair near her. The air smelled of wet soil. She poured tea and looked at me. "You know how people are," she said. "They love new stories. But stories turn ugly fast," I nodded. "They don't know me. They don't want to," she said. "You are an easy target. A woman with no family, no child, and a husband people envy." "Husband?" I laughed softly. "Elias is not my husband," she smiled sadly. "Maybe not, but they see you living under his roof." "That's enough for tongues to move." I looked away. "He gave me work, not marriage." "I know," she said. "But Henry doesn't like that." "Henry?" I frowned. "Elias's brother-in-law?" "Yes, the man with the fine coat and greedy eyes. He wants what Elias owns. The forest, the sawmill, the respect," I swallowed. "Why tell me this?" "Because you're part of his life now," she said. "That makes you a threat." I stared at the trees behind her house. The leaves trembled in the wind. "A threat? I'm no one." "Not to him," she said. "To his pride." Her words stayed in my head the whole day. That evening, Elias returned from the forest. His shirt was torn near the shoulder. "Long day?" I asked. He nodded. "The workers left early." "Rain's coming. Do you need tea?" He smiled tiredly. That would help. While I boiled water, he watched the children play with a small wooden horse. "They like you," he said. "I hope so," I whispered. "You saved Rose from the fire," he said. "They trust you now." I looked down at the cup in my hand. "People in town don't." He turned his head. "What do you mean?" "They talk," I said. "They call me names," he sighed. "Let them talk. We have work, food, and peace. Words can't hurt if we don't let them." But I wasn't sure. Words had already hurt before. That night, I heard a knock on the door. Elias was still outside stacking wood. When I opened it, Henry stood there. His smile was too soft to be real. "Evening," he said. "I came to see my dear brother." "He's out back," I said. "You can wait." He stepped inside without asking. His boots left mud on the floor. "So this is where you live now?" he said, looking around. "Nice little cage." I stiffened. "It's a home," he laughed. "Home? You mean the house of the man who bought you?" My face burned. "He didn't buy me. Come now," he said. "Everyone knows your parents took his money." My throat closed. "They needed help." "Help," he repeated. "Sure, people sell pigs for help too." "Stop." My voice cracked. "You don't know anything." "Oh, I know enough." He leaned close. His breath smelled of wine. "Elias always had a soft heart. But you're smart. You saw a lonely man with 4 children and thought, easy life." I stepped back. "Leave my house," he smirked. "Or what? You'll tell Elias?" "He's blind when it comes to you." I said go. He looked me up and down, slow and cruel. "You should thank me for visiting. Next time, maybe I'll bring the truth to the village." He walked out, laughing under his breath. I closed the door and locked it. My hands shook so hard I dropped the key. When Elias came in, he saw my face. "What happened?" "Nothing," I said quickly. "Ilara," he said softly. "Tell me." I looked away. "It's fine. Just tired." He didn't believe me, but he didn't press. "Rest then," he said. "I'll keep watch tonight." I nodded and went to my small room. The window was open, rain starting to fall. Outside, thunder rolled. I sat on the floor, knees pulled to my chest. Henry's words echoed in my head. "Bought you cheap." The wind howled like it wanted to agree. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The rain hit the roof harder. I pressed my palms over my ears. Maybe I was still trapped, just in a prettier cage. When the storm finally broke, I whispered to myself, "If this is freedom, why does it hurt so much?" I heard the storm before I saw the sky flash. The wind shook our small home like a thin box. I checked the lamp and said, "Keep away from fire." Anna watched me in silence and held her breath. June hugged Rose and whispered, "I feel afraid, Mama." I said, "I am not Mama." "But I will help." Elias came in wet and said, "River rose past the bend." I nodded and said, "We stay close and stay calm." He said, "We will be fine." "I promise, all right?" My heart wanted that promise. My fear stayed anyway. I set soup on the table and fixed the bread. Elias sat down and said, "Eat while it is hot." I said, "Thanks." "Your hands are shaking from the cold." He smiled and said, "Your hands are warm with courage." Silence moved in the room like a slow shadow. Rain hissed on the roof and beat the porch hard. Anna asked me, "Will our roof fall in tonight?" I said, "No." The house stood through worse storms. She studied my eyes and looked for truth and trust. I held her gaze and said, "I am here." Then thunder hit like drums and the door slammed open. Elias said, "Latch it tight." I pushed the bar down. Caleb chased his cart near the wall and laughed loud. He bumped a small table, and the lantern slid down. I heard the crack, glass broke, and oil ran wild. Flames climbed fast and spread like a hungry dog. I shouted, "Back, keep low! Cover your mouths now." Smoke rolled over us and bit my nose and eyes. Rose cried, "It hurts." June coughed and reached for me. Anna froze near the door and stared at the red light. Elias threw water and said, "Get them out, quick." I pulled June and Rose and pushed them to the yard. Cold rain hit my face and woke my courage. Caleb stood near the table and watched the fire dance. I said, "Come to me." He did not move. He whispered, "It looks pretty." My fear rose higher. I crawled toward him and grabbed his hand tight. Heat clawed my back while sparks hissed on the floor. We reached the door and stumbled into the storm. I said, "Stay here. Hold the fence. Do not move." They clung to each other and cried under the rain. I turned back and looked for Anna through the smoke. She still stood inside and hugged the door frame. I called, "Anna, we leave now. Come with me." She shook her head and cried, "Mama's shawl is there." She pointed toward the stove and the high peg. I remembered my shame and the weight of old love. I said, "We need you alive." "Leave the cloth," she cried. "I promised Mama I would guard it." My heart broke. My choice stood heavy in my chest. Elias said, "I will get her." He ran inside. I grabbed his sleeve and said, "Please don't go." He looked at me and said, "I won't lose her." His voice was firm and cut through roar and fear. I pulled the younger three close and touched their hair. I said, "Breathe slow. We will all be fine." I dropped to my knees and pushed back into smoke. It hit my lungs like salt and burned my eyes. I shouted, "Anna, where are you?" "Answer my voice." A weak cough came. She said, "Here, near the stove." I crawled past a fallen stool and reached their shapes. Elias held the shawl and reached toward a heavy beam. His arm was trapped under wood and the fire chewed. I said, "Drop the shawl." He met my eyes and nodded. He let it fall and I shoved my hands under. Pain cut my palms like glass and I still pushed. "On three," I said. 1, 2, 3. We lifted. The beam rose a little and Elias pulled his arm. The chair broke with sparks and smoke roared around us. "Take Anna," he said. I grabbed her and turned. She clung to my neck and sobbed against my ear. I said, "I got you. We leave. We live." We crawled together while embers fell like cruel stars. Elias covered us with a wet blanket and moved close. The doorway glowed pale like a small dream of freedom. Cold air touched my cheeks when we reached the yard. I fell into mud and held Anna very tight. The others screamed our names and ran to our side. Elias stumbled out behind us and coughed in pain. He knelt and pressed his forehead to mine with relief. He said, "You saved them." I said, "You went first." He laughed once and said, "We saved each other tonight." My heart opened like a door and I breathed slow. The cabin cracked and sighed and the roof fell in. Fire ate the last rafters and sparks died in rain. Neighbors ran from the road with buckets and coats. Clara hugged me and said, "You were brave tonight." I said, "I felt fear." "I only kept moving," Mr. Thorne said. "You showed courage. We will help." I nodded and whispered, "Thanks," with a shaking voice. Elias checked my burned hands and held them gently. He said, "Home can be rebuilt." "You did not run," I said. "I stayed for the children and for you too today." The morning was quiet when Clara knocked on my door. She held a folded paper in her hand. "Post came from town," she said softly. I took it, feeling my fingers shake. My name was written in my mother's hand. I sat by the small window and opened it slowly. The words blurred before I finished the first line. "Alara, we are sorry. We lost everything. Please help us." I read it again and again. Each word cut deeper. She wrote about the fire that burned half the house. She said my father was sick. She said they needed money to start again. At the end she wrote, "You are still our daughter." Elias walked in with his axe on his shoulder. He looked at my face and stopped. "What happened?" he asked. I showed him the letter. He read it once, then looked up. "You don't owe them," he said. I stared at the floor. "They are still my parents," I whispered. He sighed. "And they sold you, Ilara." His voice was calm, but his eyes were sad. "They gave you away for money." I folded the letter and held it close. "I know," I said. "But I need to go." He stepped closer. "You don't have to." "I want to," I said quietly. "For me." The next morning I packed a small bag. The children watched from the doorway. Anna asked, "Are you leaving?" "Just for a while," I said. Caleb ran to me and hugged my leg. "Bring something sweet," he said. I smiled weakly. "If I can." The road to town was muddy after rain. The trees whispered like they wanted to stop me. I walked fast, holding the letter in my pocket. Every step hurt, but I kept going. When I reached the edge of town, people stared. They still saw me as the infertile woman. I kept my head down. I went to the market first. I sold 2 scarves and counted the coins. It was enough for medicine, maybe some food. Their house stood at the end of the lane. The roof was broken, the door half hanging. Smoke rose from a cold chimney. I knocked once, no answer. I knocked again. Then I heard my mother's voice behind the door. "Who is it?" "It's me," I said. "Ilara." There was a long pause. Then whispers. My father coughed. Finally, the door opened a little. My mother's face appeared in the crack. Her eyes were dull, her mouth tight. "What do you want?" she asked. "I came to help," I said. "I brought money." She stared at the coins in my hand. Her eyes filled with shame or maybe anger. "We don't need your pity," she said. Her voice was sharp like glass. I froze. "I just wanted—" She pushed the door closed. The latch clicked. I stood there for a long time. The cold wind touched my hair. I thought I would cry, but no tears came. Just emptiness. I turned and walked away. Each step felt lighter and heavier at once. Lighter because I was free. Heavier because I still loved them. When I reached the forest path, Elias was waiting. He leaned against his wagon, arms crossed. "You went anyway," he said. "I had to," I answered. He looked at me for a moment. "Did they take it?" "No," I said. "They closed the door." He nodded slowly. "Then you know now." I climbed into the wagon beside him. The road home was silent. The trees looked softer than before. The air smelled of pine and smoke. After a while, Elias spoke. "You're stronger than you think." I looked at him. "I don't feel strong." "Maybe strength feels like this," he said. The cabin lights glowed when we arrived. Anna opened the door before we reached it. "Did you bring sweets?" Caleb shouted. I smiled faintly. "No, but I brought myself back." Elias smiled too, tired but kind. He helped me down, his hand warm around mine. That night, I placed the letter in the fire. The paper burned fast, curling like a dry leaf. I watched until the last ash turned to dust. I whispered, "I forgive you." The flames cracked softly as if they answered. Then I went to bed, holding the smell of smoke and peace. "Did you hear?" Clara asked as I filled the water bucket. Her voice was low, uneasy. "Henry's been talking again." I froze. "Talking about what?" She looked around. "He says you started the fire." "He says you wanted Elias's money." I laughed, but it sounded broken. "That's a lie," Clara sighed. "I know. But lies travel faster than truth here." She touched my arm. "Be careful, Ilara." I nodded and carried the bucket home. On the way, 3 women walked past me. None looked my way. They always smiled before. Now they turned their heads like I carried disease. When I stepped inside, Anna sat at the table, her arms crossed. "Is it true?" she asked. I blinked. "Is what true?" "That you burned the cabin," she whispered. "That you did it for Father's money." My breath caught. "Who told you that?" "People," she said. "Everyone." I wanted to shout, but I only said, "Anna, I saved you that night." "I ran into fire for you." She looked away. I don't know what to believe. The words cut deep. I went outside and sat on the steps, holding my head. The air smelled of wet pine and ash. I thought of leaving. Maybe that was safer. But when I saw the children's shoes by the door, I couldn't. Elias came home late, mud on his boots. "You've been quiet," he said. "People are saying things," I answered. "I know." he said softly. Henry came to me today. He called you a liar, said you only care for money. I shook my head hard. He's the liar. Elias looked at me for a long time. I believe you, he said finally. But I need to stop him before this gets worse. Don't go, I said quickly. He's dangerous. I can't let him poison my home, Elias said, grabbing his coat. I'll talk to him. I'll be back soon. The door shut. Wind blew through the cracks. The children went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. The words, "he's dangerous," played again and again in my mind. When thunder rolled, I took a lantern and went outside. The path to the river was dark, filled with whispers of rain and branches. "Elias!" I called. No answer. I kept walking. My shoes sank into mud. Then I saw him. He lay by the riverbank, face pale, blood on his shirt. My heart stopped. I ran to him and dropped to my knees. "Elias, please say something!" He opened his eyes weakly. "Elara." His voice broke. "Henry, he attacked me. Said I ruined his life." I pressed my scarf against the wound. "Don't talk. We'll go home." He smiled faintly. "Home?" "Yes," I said, my voice shaking. "Our home." I dragged him slowly through the wet grass. My arms burned. My dress was soaked, but I didn't stop. "Stay with me," I whispered again and again. When we reached the cabin, Anna screamed. June and Rose cried. Caleb ran for towels. "Get water," I said, "and cloth." Anna stood frozen. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. Help me now," I said. "We'll talk later." Together we cleaned the wound and stopped the bleeding. Elias's breathing slowed but didn't stop. "Will he die?" June asked. "No," I said firmly. "He's strong." But my voice trembled. The night felt endless. I sat beside him, holding his hand, whispering prayers I didn't believe in. My body ached, but I didn't move. When dawn came, light touched his face like a promise. He opened his eyes a little. "You stayed," he murmured. "I'll always stay," I said. "This is my home, too," he smiled weakly. "You're safe now." But I wasn't thinking about safety. I was thinking about Henry, his lies, his greed, his hatred. He had almost destroyed everything I loved. I stood up and looked at the children huddled together. "No one will hurt us again," I said quietly. "Not him, not anyone." Anna came close. "You saved him," she whispered. "I was wrong." I touched her hair. "You were scared." "I understand." Outside, the forest was waking, birds singing, river whispering. The sun rose like fire, and I felt it inside me too. I wasn't the weak girl who got sold. I wasn't the silent one anymore. I was someone who fought back, someone who built her own home from ashes. And I swore, as I watched Elias breathe again, that I would never let lies win. Not while I still had a voice. The sheriff came at noon. His horse stopped in front of our cabin. Henry sat behind him, a fake smile on his face. My heart started to race. "Mrs. Ward," the sheriff said, "you're accused of fraud." "Fraud?" I asked. My voice cracked. Henry jumped down and walked closer. "She used Elias's name," he said loudly. "She sold land that was not hers." "That's a lie," I said. My hands shook, but I didn't step back. Henry smirked. "You think anyone will believe you?" "You were sold like cattle." Elias came out from behind me. His face was pale but strong. "That's enough," he said. "You made this up," Henry laughed. "Show the proof, brother." "Let's see what you have." The sheriff opened a paper. "These are signed contracts," he said. Elias frowned. "Those aren't mine." Henry folded his arms. "Then whose name is that?" "It's forged," Elias said. "The signature isn't mine." Henry shook his head. "You'll say anything to protect your little housemaid." I felt heat rise in my face. "You hate me because Elias chose kindness," I said. "You can't stand it." Henry turned to the sheriff. "See, she's clever." That's how she fooled him. Before the sheriff could speak again, a calm voice came from behind the trees. "Enough lies." It was Mr. Thorne, the elder of the village. He walked slowly, holding a thick folder. Henry's smile faded. "You again?" "Yes," Mr. Thorne said. "And this time, I have what you hid." The sheriff took the folder. "What's this?" "Proof," Mr. Thorne said. Henry forged Elias's name. He tried to take 3 plots of land and sell them. The sheriff read for a long moment. His face turned red. "Henry, is this true?" Henry's mouth opened, then closed. "You can't prove—" "I just did," Mr. Thorne said. Elias looked at me. I could see tears in his eyes. "You didn't deserve this," he whispered. Henry tried to run, but 2 men from the village grabbed him. The sheriff shouted, "Henry Ward, you're under arrest for fraud and forgery." Henry screamed, "You'll regret this!" I didn't move. I just watched as they tied his hands. The forest was silent except for the sound of ropes pulling tight. When they led him away, I felt my knees weaken. Elias caught me before I fell. "It's over," he said softly. "No," I said. "It's just quiet now," he smiled faintly. "You always think of peace as danger." "I don't know what peace feels like," I said. "Then stay," he whispered. "Stay until you do." I looked at his hand, still holding mine. "You don't have to keep saving me," I said. "I'm not saving you," he said. "I'm asking you to stop running." I looked around. The tall trees, the children peeking from the door, the broken fence we built together. For the first time, the forest didn't feel dark. The cold wind felt warm on my skin. I said, "Maybe I can learn." Elias nodded. "We'll learn together," I smiled, slow and real. "Then I'll stay." He squeezed my hand. "Welcome home, Ilara." The words hit deep inside me. Not because they were loud, but because they were true. As Henry's horse disappeared down the road, I didn't feel revenge. I felt release. For the first time in years, my heart was quiet, and when I looked at Elias, I knew this was my choice. This time, nobody had sold me. I had chosen to stay. The snow was gone. The forest smelled alive again. I felt the ground soft under my boots as I stepped outside the cabin. The garden waited, empty and quiet. "Anna," I called. "Bring the seeds." She ran out, her dress covered in dust. "Here, Mama," she said, smiling. That word still surprised me. It never stopped warming me. We kneeled together near the fence. Her small hands pushed the soil, soft and careful. "What kind of flowers will grow?" she asked. "Ones that don't fear the cold," I said. She laughed. "Like you." Elias came from the barn, his axe resting on his shoulder. He looked tired but peaceful. "You two already started?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Before the rain comes." He nodded, watching the sky. "It smells like spring again." "It does," I whispered. "It really does." The door creaked, and June came out with Rose holding her hand. "Can we help too?" June asked. "Of course," I said. "Everyone helps today?" Rose giggled. "Then I will water the flowers." She poured too much, and mud splashed on her shoes. We all laughed. Even Elias smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes. Caleb ran from the trees, holding something shiny. "Look what I found!" he shouted. It was a small locket, burned on one side. I knew it, my mother's gift from years ago. I must have dropped it the night of the fire. Elias looked at me. "Do you want to keep it?" I turned it over in my palm. The metal was cold. "It belongs to the past," I said. He nodded. "Then let the past stay buried." I smiled weakly. "Yes, but sometimes the past grows roots too." We worked until the sun fell low. The cabin glowed gold in the fading light. Inside, the fire crackled, warm and soft. I sat near it, brushing the children's hair. They argued over who would sit closest to me. "Tell us a story," June said. "What kind of story?" I asked. "The one where the woman doesn't give up," Anna said. I laughed. "That one again?" "Yes," they all shouted. "So I told it," I said. "Once there was a woman who lost her home." "Did she find another?" Caleb asked. "She did," I said. "But not because someone gave it to her. Because she built it with her own hands." Elias sat beside me, listening quietly. When I finished, he said softly, "You are that woman." I looked at him, my eyes warm from the firelight. "Maybe," I said. "But she didn't do it alone." He smiled. "No one ever does." Silence filled the room, soft and full. The children leaned on me, half asleep. I stroked their hair, feeling peace where fear once lived. Elias stood and pulled a blanket over us. Then Caleb lifted his head. "Mama, yes? Will you stay forever?" The question caught me like a breath in my chest. I looked around. The cabin, the faces, the life we built from ashes. "Yes," I said. "I will stay." The fire popped, sending sparks into the air. Outside, the wind carried the scent of wet earth and pine. I thought of my parents for the first time in months. "Not with hate, but with distance," I whispered into the quiet. "I forgive them." Elias looked at me from across the room. "What did you say?" Nothing, I said. Just talking to ghosts. He came closer. And what do they say back? I smiled. They finally listen. The flames flickered across the walls. The locket lay on the table, shining faintly in the glow. I didn't need it anymore. The family I lost was gone. The family I found was here, loud, messy, alive. When the last candle burned low, I closed my eyes. The forest sang outside, full of rain and promise, and for the first time I slept without fear.